Hello, ladies and welcome back to the channel. My name is Mark Roden, and in today's video, we are going to be going over the good, the bad, and the ugly on the Nissan Silvia S15. Now, I know this is a weird car to do these on because typically when I do my good, bad, and uglies, I do them on lower end sports cars because I feel like most people watch them either A, after they already bought the car, or B, right before they're going to buy the car. And obviously S15 Silvias are expensive, and so most of us can't really even afford them, and so it might not get that many views, but somebody said they wanted to see it, and it was the first comment on my last good, bad, and ugly, so we're doing it. That's, by the way, in case you don't know, if you want to see me do a good, bad, and ugly on a certain car, leave a comment down below. That's the only way I get recommendations for it. I don't come up with it myself. I only go off of recommendations. So if you want to see your car, leave a comment down below. Okay, and also, in case you're new here, the way that these good, bad, and uglies work is first, we go over everything you kind of need to know about the car, just basic info about the car. Then I get into what the community tends to do with them in terms of modifying them. Then I get into the good, the bad, and the ugly, which we'll go over when we get there. And then at the end of the video, I tell you whether or not I think you should buy the car, depending on the current situation that you're in. But without further ado, let's get right into it with the good, the bad, and the ugly on the Nissan Silvia S15. All right, so like I said, first thing we need to talk about in order to begin the good, bad, and ugly is everything about just basic info about the car. First off is the years made and the generation. It was made between the years 1999 and 2002, and it is the 7th generation Nissan Silvia if you count the CSP 310 or whatever that thing's called, which I do, so I would consider that as Silvia or a S chassis. And yeah, so it's the 7th generation. As for the trim levels, there's an actual decent amount of them, and they actually are slightly different. So the Spec R is the best one, and it comes with an SR20 DET or DET which is a 2-liter turbo inline-4 that makes 250 horsepower. That's pretty good, obviously. Next is the Spec S, which it comes with the same motor pretty much, but naturally aspirated. The SR20 DE, which is a 2-liter inline-4, but now only makes 200 horsepower because it does not have that turbocharger, which is still very good, mind you. Then they also have two other variants that I thought were worth mentioning. The Silvia Varietta, which is pretty much just a convertible version of the Spec S. So it's a naturally aspirated convertible version of that car, which is honestly really weird looking. I don't know how I feel about it. And then this is the weirdest car ever, the new Lasade, which I don't even know how to describe this. I'm going to put a picture of it on the screen, but yes, this is an S15 Silvia chassis. Obviously it's heavily modified, but that's what it is. Okay, I don't know anything about this car besides that's what it looks like. It is a weird car. As for the body styles, it is available as a coupe and convertible only, unless again you count that new Lasade thing as a different body style, but I don't even know what you would count that. As for the drivetrains, it is rear-wheel drive only, no all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive versions of this car, obviously. As for the transmissions, it is an automatic or manual. You can pick between the two. Obviously get the manual if you like cars, but if you like being boring, by the automatic. As for the price, obviously these cars are way out of most of our price ranges, but they vary drastically depending on what you're actually getting. I would say anywhere from like $25,000 all the way up to like $100,000, and I'm not even joking. If you find like a perfect condition Spec R bone stock 10,000 mile S15, it can be 100K. On the other hand though, you can find a relatively used Spec S for around 25 grand too. You could even find them for cheaper than that if they're like really beaten up. As for the reliability and the gas mileage, the SR20s are reliable as hell, especially if you could find one in decent condition, and it gets 27 miles per gallon combined, which is very good. Okay, but now we're going to be talking about what the community tends to do with these bad mother jammers when they modify them. As for the drifting boys, obviously this is incredibly popular. It's one of the most popular cars for drifting, as a matter of fact. They are the drifters' like dream car. Like, this is the drifters' master prestige drift car here. As for the rally / off-road folks, it's not popular at all, really. The car wasn't built for it, so they don't use it for it. Makes perfect sense. I'm sure you can find one or two people that have turned a S15 Silvia into a rally car, but it's just not popular. As for the street racing community, sometimes it's used here, I guess, but again, it's really not what the car was built for. It's a handling kind of car. The SR20 deck can handle decent amount of power, but it's not enough power to make it like a street racing machine. As for track racing, on the other hand, yes, these things are turned into time attack cars quite a bit, actually, and they do very well at it. They are very good handling cars. The SR20 deck is a perfect motor for stuff like that because, again, it can't handle handle a ton of power, but it can handle enough. And yeah, they just love to turn these things into little track monsters. And then finally, the stance cars or the show cars, people that just care about building it just to make them look good, and that's pretty much it. Very popular because the car is incredibly sexy, obviously. So yeah, they do this quite a bit. They do turn them into stance cars. I wouldn't say they're my personal favorites. They do look good, but I would definitely, if I had an S15 Silvia, this thing would be definitely not just be a looker. It would be a fun car to drive, personally. Alright, but now we are into the good, the bad, and the ugly. And in case you're new here, the way that this works is first we go over the good, which are things that are good about the car, things that you would use as a selling point on the car. Then we go into the bad, which aren't actually bad. I say that in every video, but for some reason people get confused on it. But yes, the bad is just a fun way on words, because Good, Bad, and Ugly is a popular movie, okay? The bad is more just a middle ground area. It could be a problem if it affects you, but if it doesn't affect you, then who really cares? It's not an issue, okay? And then we get into the ugly, which are actual just issues. Most cars don't have many true ugly points on it, okay? But without further ado, let's get right into it with the good. Then the first is the looks. I know this is technically a subjective thing. Obviously, people are going to be like, wow, I like this car, I don't like this car in terms of their looks. That's totally up to you, and that's totally fine. But I do think you're going to be hard pressed to find somebody who genuinely, and not just somebody who's trying to hate JDM cars because they don't want to be labeled as a 12-year-old, but an actual genuine dislike of the S15 Silvia's looks. I think that's going to be very, very hard to do. They are gorgeous cars, and almost around the globe, people are thinking that these are good-looking cars, and I would agree. Next for the good is the reliability. They're very reliable cars, like we said before, but yeah, SR20 Dets can not only be really good, reliable cars for daily driving, but also good for making some power. Next is the aftermarket support. It's got a ridiculous amount of aftermarket support, whether it's exterior mods, interior mods, performance mods, whatever it may be. This car has a ridiculous amount of it. Next is, apparently it's actually a very comfortable sports car, which is surprising to say the least, because 90s Japanese sports cars, let's be real here, are not the most comfortable cars to drive. But everything online that I'm seeing is people saying that they were very surprised with the comfort levels of an S15, which is pretty cool, actually. Next is the car is a very good investment. Even if you buy one right now for, let's say, 40 grand, okay? You take good care of it, or if you find one that's relatively beaten up a little bit and you fix it, you could very easily make good money on S15s in a couple of years. They're only going to go up. Next is the community is pretty good too, because it's very small. Obviously, it's not a secret that smaller communities in the car scene usually are better communities to become a part of, because they don't have all the 16-year-olds that are, no offense, I know I have a lot of 16-year-olds watching these videos, but let's be real, you guys can be a little immature at some points, and that could sometimes ruin the reputation of communities. And if you have a very, very small community like the S15 Silvia does, it's not that toxic. Next is the car is actually quicker than you would think. Like I said before, 250 horsepower in the SR20 Det Spec R models is not anything to really sleep on, especially when you consider the car is a 90s Japanese car that weighs not that much. It's actually a pretty decent horsepower number. These cars are definitely quicker than you are going to expect them to be. Next is they're actually not that sketchy to buy, since most of them are actually taken care of nowadays, and the ones that aren't taken care of are more well known out there to be hoopties. That's the good part about having such a small community and having such small amounts of cars out there, especially if you live in America. There's not that many S15 Silvias over here, so pretty much every S15, most people are going to know something about it. If it's going to be a hoopty, you can send it to like an S15 Silvia club, and they might be like, hey, yeah, don't buy that car, we know that car is a bad car, because we look at these cars. And so it's actually not as sketchy to buy as some of these other cars that we've talked about with the good, bad, and uglies. And finally, for the good is the handling is very, very good. We talked about this earlier, but with the track racing thing, but yeah, these are absolute track monsters. I personally don't see how people would turn this into a drift car when they can handle as good as they can. I would much rather enjoy the car as a race car because of how good they can handle. Okay, but now we are going into the bad, and again, bad isn't actually things that are bad about the car. They're just things that are kind of a middle ground. It might affect you, it might not. It's kind of up to you. It's a medium point to make up your mind on it. First off is the sound. I put the sound here in every single one of my good, bad, and uglies. It's the first thing in the bad always, because obviously this is fully 100% up to you. So here is a clip of an SR20 Det powered Silvia. Next up is the price for performance is truly awful. Unfortunately, since these cars are so popular, you are paying that JDM tax, and it is going to be a lot more expensive than realistically what it should be, especially if you're looking at buying like a performance car. There is a lot of better options if you're looking at buying a performance car for the price that you're going to pay for an S15 Silvia. Next is the cup holders are pretty much useless. This is, I mean, we all want cup holders, man, okay? And you can't be holding your Arizona iced teas in an S15 Silvia, unfortunately, which is really unfortunate. Next is very popular. They're very popular cars. They are going to attract attention. Obviously, this can be shifted in either way, and that's why I put it in the bad. On my personal opinion, I like it. I do like when people look at my cars and are like, wow, it's a cool looking car. I like that. I do enjoy the attention sometimes. But there are people out there that don't. If you're that person, if you want to, you know, just drive around and not have everybody staring at your car, then, you know, maybe not buy this car. Next up is, it is unfortunately a coupe or a convertible only. I personally like that. I like coupes. I don't really mind if they're coupes, but some people might want a sedan, so keep that in mind. Next up is the car's rear-wheel drive only. Personally, again, I don't really care too much about that. I like rear-wheel drive cars, but if you are like a young kid and you're thinking about buying this as like your first car, which by the way, power to you if you have the money to buy an S15 Silvia as your first car, but if you are doing that, then yeah, just keep that in mind if you live up north. You know, these are rear-wheel drive cars, and you might want to invest your money into something all-wheel drive or even front-wheel drive if you live in a winter area. Next up is, it is a 90s Nissan, so of course this thing will have issues. Every single freaking Nissan ever built has wiring issues and random little things that just go wrong. It's so weird because you don't want to say the cars are unreliable, because typically the motors and transmissions, besides the CVTs, but the motors and transmissions are actually pretty good motors, especially like come on, Nissan made the CD009. VQs are incredibly reliable. SO20s are incredibly reliable. RBs are incredibly reliable. Like, they make good, like the heart and soul of the car is always good, but they always have these weird supporting things that just always go wrong. With my Z, it was wiring. It's always got something about it, and this is a 90s Nissan, so it is going to have a little bit of issues. And especially, even if it wasn't a Nissan, there is obviously things that do happen just due to age in general. Things like bushings wearing out, things like mice getting up in there and chewing up the wires and stuff like that. Rust, obviously. More electronics just not working because of time. It's just things like that you want to be sure to look at. Paint fade, stuff like that. Anyway, next up is OEM parts. OEM, my bad. OEM parts are incredibly expensive. Aftermarket parts aren't that bad because it's aftermarket, but if you actually want to buy like an OEM spoiler for a spec car or Silvia, it's a stupid amount of money for these things, which does make sense because of the rarity of it, but at the same time, it still sucks. And finally, for the bad, is this is an import-only car for us Americans. There's lots of paperwork, lots of stress just to get one of these things if you're importing it yourself. Obviously, if it's already imported, it's going to be a little bit easier, but it's still not as easy as just buying a regular car and registering it here in America. You still have to go do jump through some hoops there. So that's obviously not that great. If you're not an American, I don't know how your import laws are, so I can't really put an input on that, but make sure you look it up before buying one. And now we are into the ugly, and there's only one thing that I think is truly ugly about this car. The only true major issue I could find about the S15 Silvia. Like I said before, they are reliable cars, and there wasn't much out there that I could see that was saying they were unreliable. On top of that, it's probably also because of the fact that there's not that big of a community for it, so there's not a lot of people being too vocal about the issues with these cars. But the only thing that I could find, which could be a true issue with these cars, is apparently the 6-speed gearbox will have quite a bit of issues, unfortunately. There is a 5-speed option and a 6-speed option, and the 6-speed apparently tends to have some issues, which obviously isn't the funnest thing out there, but at the end of the day, just drive the car until the 6-speed gearbox blows up and swap it with a CD009. It's the better option anyways, let's be real here. Alright, but my final thoughts. Do I think you should buy this car depending on the current situation that you're in? I have 4 situations here. A daily driver, car guy daily driver, because those are obviously 2 different things, Sunday cruiser, and race car. As for the person that's just looking for a daily driver, you are a random guy on the street. You don't care about cars whatsoever. You're watching this video and you don't even know what the word horsepower means. You don't care. You just want a car that can get you from point A to point B. This is not a good option in any way whatsoever. I could actually, as a matter of fact, I could probably not think of a better car or a worse car than this to buy. It makes 0 sense for you to buy a 90s import Nissan for 25 grand if you don't care about cars at all. Just don't buy this. It's awful. As for the car guys that are looking for the daily driver, still I don't think it's the best idea for us, but it can be done. I think it's just too valuable to risk it. Obviously, if these cars were like 10 grand, then I would say, yeah, actually, they're actually a pretty good option for that. They have a decent amount of space, they're reliable, they look good, they're fun, and they're not too fast to get you in too much trouble, but they're also not boringly slow. But like I said, they are very, very expensive, so I think it's just a little bit too valuable. Like, I would be stressed out if I was driving around in a $30,000 Nissan in every single intersection. I had to make sure like nobody was oh my god, it would drive me absolutely insane. So I personally wouldn't, but it's up to you. As for the people looking for a Sunday cruiser, it does make sense for sure for this car, but I do think you maybe get bored of this car stock, actually. Like I said before, 250 horsepower is no slouch, but at the same time, it's very easy to get used to that. You know, you could very easily get used to an S15 Silvia and then want to modify it. And obviously Sunday cruiser guys, they don't tend to do that. They just tend to keep it stock, keep it in the garage. But at the same time, I do understand why you wouldn't want to turn this thing into like a crazy project car, because they are expensive. But as for the race car slash project car people that are looking for something that they want to build up and make into a really fun toy, I think this is the best choice for these cars. I don't need to tell you that the potential that these cars have. There's tons of videos out there already explaining SR20 Det's potential. But yeah, they are insanely they have an insane amount of potential. They can be an insanely fun car. I think this is a good option if you do end up buying an S15. However, I will say, it depends on the S15 you buy. Obviously, if you're buying like a brand new bone stock one, I would probably just keep it stock, man. But if you want like a fun chassis to just build on, buy a cheaper one. Just do that for us S15 fans. But yeah. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of today's video of the good, the bad, and the ugly on the Nissan Silvia S15. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. I got like a hair on my face that's driving me nuts. You guys are probably like, wow, this market, I think, is turning into a schizophrenic. I think I am too, because I keep feeling hairs on my face and I can't get them off. It's driving me absolutely insane. But either way, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. Let me know what other cars you'd like to see me do a good, bad, and ugly on in the comment section down below. And that's pretty much it. Also, let me know if you have a device that can make it so that every hair that gets stuck on my forehead just immediately gets just ripped off me, because I can't find this hair and it's driving me insane. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. Das Vidania, and have a nice night.